Madam Chairman, thank you for bringing together this august group to have this discussion. You know, Russia continues to undermine peace and security in Europe, as we've talked, through a variety of mechanisms, including its use of energy as a weapon. It uses its energy sector as a weapon to intimidate, to influence, and to coerce other nations, and Russia continues to be Europe's main energy supplier. Also has significant ownership in Europe's energy infrastructure, including pipelines, distribution, storage facilities. I believe it's in the national security interest of the United States to help our allies reduce their dependence on Russian energy. If America doesn't step up to the plate now, then Russian influence is only going to grow and continue to grow. And they continue to use energy as a weapon. A story in The Economist last week, Madam Chairman, about Russia and its nuclear dominance and nuclear power and exporting that technology and keeping countries connected to Russia as a result of all sorts of different energy. Due to technological advances and a newfound abundance of natural gas, the United States really now has the capability and capacity to be a strategic energy supplier to Europe. The United States can help Europeans meet their energy demands and diversify their energy imports away from countries that use energy as a weapon against them. So I think our LNG exports create jobs across America. They assist in reducing our nation's trade deficit. They help our allies and strategic partners across the globe. And we have plenty of natural gas to meet our own needs while helping our country's allies. There are a couple of export facilities right now in the United States able to ship natural gas overseas, one in Maryland, one in Louisiana. 3 more are due to be operational by the end of the year. At least 20 additional projects are awaiting federal permits, and I think we have to expedite these approvals to give our allies alternatives to Russian energy. On July 18th of this year, I introduced it's called the ESCAPE Act. It stands for Energy Security Cooperation with Allied Partners in Europe Act. It's going to improve energy security, help end the political manipulations by Russia through its energy resources. It does require the State Department, USAID, the Department of Energy, to create a transatlantic energy strategy focused on enhancing the energy security of our NATO allies and increasing American energy exports to these countries. The bill also requires the Secretary of Energy to expedite approvals of natural gas exports to NATO allies and other foreign countries where exports to that country would promote our national security interests. So I think it's time for Congress to clear away regulatory hurdles and make the changes necessary to give Americans as well as our European allies a better energy option. So, Dr. Grigas, I'd like to start with you because I thought your testimony, the written testimony, was very compelling. The United States natural gas infrastructure, to me, is still inadequate. There are groups and members of Congress wanting it to stay that way to prevent our resources from ever being developed. But is it appropriate to keep this incredible resource locked in the ground, and what do you think we should be doing?
I think the United States today has an incredible resource at its disposal, a resource that could be used for America's economic gains, its geopolitical gains. It's an incredible resource that should be used. And as we discussed with the panel, the global gas markets are currently transforming. There's a lot more supply coming online. There are a lot more competing countries. The U.S. is a leading player right now in the gas markets, the largest gas producer, and it should maintain that position, and it should actually improve its position. It should really emerge as one of the leading LNG exporters, so it can not only secure a lot of our ally countries, which happen to be dependent on energy imports. Both in Europe, our allies are dependent on energy imports, and in Asia, our allies such as Japan, South Korea, and others are also dependent on energy imports. So this is an economic and geopolitical benefit for the United States.
Okay. Mr. Brooke, anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, I think that one of the issues that came up, Senator, while you were out was the question of whether or not we're imperiling other economic sectors in the United States. And I think Mr. Slocum's comments are reasonable. We should be concerned. We are Americans. We're all here. And he brought up the example of Australia. But look, you can wrap Crocodile Dundee in American flag pajamas. It doesn't make him the president. That is a very different circumstance. If you have infrastructure on the West and East coasts connected together, you have a different situation in Australia. Here in the U.S., our problem is that we have too much gas, not too little infrastructure. And the goal is to try to get it to market to make value for the American people. And so if that produces dividends in the form of freedom and international benefits with our allies, even better. there's a lot to be had all around. A very different situation. It's a very flat supply curve here in the U.S.
Mr. Mills, anything you'd like to add?
Well, no, I think I would echo again, I mean, with Mr. Slocum and Mr. Book, the domestic features are critical. They obviously are. And we are all of us sensitive to domestic economic impacts are negative, because in economics, as you know, it's like the proverbial analogy to the balloon. You squeeze one part, it inflates other places. That's life. However, the technological fundamentals that I study and have for years with respect to the underlying resource bases are so remarkable, so different than what anybody imagined before, that we are literally gushing gas. We need to find places to use it. The part I would like to emphasize, we've talked a lot about Russia's overt negative behaviors. The issue is actually, I think, more subtle than that, and we all know this. The nature of international relations that attend to what's called soft power have to do with the postures of all the counterparties. When you're in a weak position, it profoundly infects the nature of a negotiation or a treaty. For the United States to be in a profoundly powerful position has benefits that are difficult to categorize in ways that somebody might turn off the gas. You don't have to make overt threats when you have such dominant positions in Europe as Russia now has.
Well, it's interesting because we had a Foreign Relations Committee hearing specifically on this and talked about Russia. And Russia has basically three sources of power. They have energy, the military, and they have the cyber. And other than that, not at all. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chairman.